so scary, so scary, so scary, so scary, so scary. Don't go overboard, Zenitsu. Tanjiro hit Zenitsu's head with his fists as the latter had lost all sense of reason. Can you see she's frightened? Don't cause trouble for the people in the shop. Even though he did not use a lot of strength, his friend's eyes suddenly rolled upward and collapsed on the table in a relaxed manner. After the situation finally regained its peace, Tanjiro lowered his head to apologize again. It's fine. The waitress was teary-eyed. Even though Tanjiro also wanted to let her leave as quickly as possible, the menu was full of items that could not be identified from their name. Just as Tanjiro was at a loss, "Hey, that looks tasty, don't you think?" Inosuke pointed. Tanjiro turned his head in that direction only to see that a lady seated nearby was picking up a spoon and eating what looked like a white manju in a glass vessel. From the lady's expression, that food seemed to be cold. The vessel also had a long object that looked like a rice cracker. It did stir his curiosity. "Give us 3 of those," after Tanjiro ordered. "All right." The waitress let out an obvious relieved expression. She smiled lightly, then quickly escaped from the table. "Thank you for waiting. This is the store's recommended ice cream." What they ordered was sent to their table in a speedy manner. However, it was another waitress who served it to them. This time, it was a woman with a terrifyingly muscular frame. Even a sumo wrestler would be dwarfed in comparison. Just her arms alone were thicker than Tanjiro and Zenitsu's thighs, and her muscles were fuller and firmer than Inosuke's. "Because it melts quickly. Please enjoy it as soon as possible." "Wow, thanks." Tanjiro expressed his thanks with a smile. Inosuke, who was always itching for a fight, had his fighting spirit raised high by those naturally thick muscles, and he was struggling on whether he should challenge the waitress. "Yahoo, I'm looking forward to this." Fortunately, Inosuke's attention was taken away by the delicious food before his eyes, and he completely ignored everything else. He removed his boar head and excitedly grabbed his spoon. After scooping a generous spoonful into his mouth, "Oi boy," Inosuke made a sound of amazement. Looking carefully, he was so moved he was trembling. "This is actually really delicious." "What is this?" "I heard it's called ice cream." Tanjiro reiterated what the lady called this dish, then ate a mouthful himself. "It's tasty." Tanjiro's eyes became round. The taste was very different from a manju. It was sweet and cold, and it melted in his mouth. "Tasty, tasty, 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 tasty." Inosuke let out a cheer and scooped large chunks out. When it came to delicious food, Inosuke was pretty much harmless. Also, as he usually wearing his boar head, one could not imagine that he had a handsome face. In fact, it was not too much to say that he was a beautiful youth with white skin. Perhaps it was for this reason the ladies in the shop had their gazes focused on Inosuke. Then for some reason Zenitsu woke up. "Ah, you're awake, Zenitsu." Tanjiro breathed out a sigh of relief, saying, "The ice cream is here. It's really nice. After eating this I'm sure you'll feel better." However, Zenitsu, whose face was like that of rotting wood, turned a deaf ear. "I feel like there's someone looking at me. What do you mean, Don't you see that those girls' passionate gases? Now what? I'm going to die, and in a way that would be the most miserable that you have ever seen." "Calm down, Zenitsu. You'll cause trouble for the people here, right?" "Nuoto, Nezuko-chan, Ji-chan, save me, Zie. I don't want to die yet." Zenitsu, "Excuse me, sir, if you continue to make so much noise in the shop, I will have to ask you to leave." Just as Zenitsu was ignoring Tanjiro, who was trying to stop him and was screaming like he's seen a monster, that muscular lady politely gave a warning. Zenitsu stared at her straight. What? You said, sir, I like you. Because I'm too shy. May you step outside?" Zenitsu, who misunderstood in a ridiculous manner, started to tremble on the spot. "Yeah, I've been confessed to. That's a confession." "Nudo." Zenitsu yelled on the top of his lungs, then pushing Tanjiro, who was seated next to him, aside immediately, he dashed out of the store's entrance. There was not even the opportunity to stop him. Tanjiro watched as his friend disappeared with a flabbergasted expression. Perhaps he received a huge shock, so Zenitsu forgot to bring the talisman that was initially tightly held in his hand. Inosuke, who was sitting on the opposite side, ate the ice cream with great relish and did not even realize that Zenitsu had ran away. Tanjiro gently picked up the talisman his friend left on the table. "Then, sir, may I ask, where did you get that talisman?" The waitress frowned and asked sternly, "What do we do? Where did Zenitsu go?" Tanjiro searched for Zenitsu amongst the crowd of people. If it were in the mountains, it would extremely easy to spot that blonde mop of hair. However, this place was full of different colors and everyone was dressed in various ways. It would definitely take a huge effort to find his friend. The waitress, her name is Quiro, said that there was a fake fortune teller who would borrow the name of the famous fortune teller at the crossroads and find entertainment in scaring people with her malicious lies. Previously, a customer of the shop also encountered this fake, and that time she showed her a talisman which looked exactly the same as the one that Zenitsu had. After listening to Tanjiro's description of what had happened, Quiro was extremely worried and sympathetic. I will be done with work soon. I'll search with you guys afterwards. Also, I'm very familiar with this town, the kind girl said. Tanjiro was of course glad to accept her help. It was unfortunate that they still could not find Zenitsu. Don't tell me Zenitsu had some idea of hating the world, no way. Negative ideas appeared in his mind. Zenitsu was on the edge of a mental breakdown after all. Can't you pick up that idiot's smell? Even though I've been trying from the start, but some strong smell keeps bothering me so I can't sniff it out. Tanjiro knitted his brows. Quiro said this smell was called perfume. It was mainly used on women. Some had an extremely sharp smell, so Tanjiro's sense of smell was useless here. I'm going to search around here with Quiro. Inosuke can go over. Tanjiro only spoke halfway then found him. Quiro suddenly let out a shout. He turned his head, following where Quiro was pointing, and looked. That was definitely Zenitsu, who was crying while walking. Tanjiro let out a sigh of relief. Zen-sir. At the same time when Tanjiro was about to call out, Quiro rushed over with heavy footsteps. Zenitsu jumped while letting out a yelp, then he weakly collapsed on the ground. Most likely he went weak-kneed in fear. Just as Zenitsu closed his eyes, giving up, the carriage horses ran away. A man's angry roar rang out throughout the street. There was a disturbance around them. Run it, help me. People scattered like rats, and there were screams coming from everywhere. Tanjiro surveyed his surroundings. Quiro was about to sprint towards Zenitsu, then the horse appeared from her right side. It raised its legs. Inosuke got it. Tanjiro gave an order and the two took action at the same time. However, something that was as fast as lightning had already taken Quiro away from beneath the horse's hooves even more swiftly than them. Tanjiro's eyes widened. The object that was like lightning was Zenitsu. His friend used breath of lightning to save Quiro. That guy's good. Inosuke mumbled softly. Pretty amazing for a spineless wimp. He went up to the horse that had lost its goal and was going on a rampage, then fiercely glared at it. In a split second, the horse became even more docile than a puppy. As expected of Inosuke, Tanjiro, who became relaxed, suddenly remembered Zenitsu's situation and returned his gaze to his friend. His friend, who was carrying Quiro, was surrounded by an excited crowd. Good job, kid. What did you do? You're so fast at. You're so cool, big brother. You're amazing, boy. Everyone were throwing praises at Zenitsu's magnanimous deed. However, the person involved had an expression that he had no energy to care about them. Perhaps Quiro was too heavy. Zenitsu's face was ashen, and he could not stop shivering. Zenitsu, are you all right? Even though Tanjiro rushed over as quickly as he could, he was unable to get closer due to the human wall. With much difficulty he managed to squeeze to the front, and Quiro, who was being carried by